Hey everyone, thanks for joining Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and in today's video I'm going to look at the add-ons that are currently available for Wander Lacluck's Revenge. And depending upon when you watch this video, there might be a couple of additional add-ons that are available at that time, but we don't want to reveal everything at the beginning of the campaign. Depending upon how it does, we might have a couple of additional add-ons that we might reveal a little bit later in the campaign. But at the beginning, there's going to be three main add-ons that are going to be available. And I want to take a closer look at each one of them. The first is the Hero add-on pack. This is going to include the 9 heroes from the original Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay campaign. Some of these are Kickstarter exclusive, so if you missed out on that campaign and you want to add these, this is your opportunity at a discounted price. A little bit later in this video, I'm also going to take a deeper dive into each one of these characters so you can kind of see how each one of them plays, what kind of abilities they have on their cards, and I'll briefly talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of each one of those characters as well. From there, I'm going to move over to the High Tide expansion. This was also the first expansion to Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay, and I'm going to explain how you can incorporate this expansion into your games of both Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay as well as Wander Lacluck's Revenge. And this expansion is going to also include 2 additional heroes and 2 brand new enemy types that you can incorporate into your games. I'm also going to briefly talk about how you can combine the core games. If you have Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay and you end up picking up Lacluck's Revenge, I'm going to explain how you can incorporate those, both swapping out any of the heroes with them, as well as how you can incorporate the enemies into your games. First, I want to start off by talking about the upgrade pack. So there's going to be an upgrade pack that is going to be available. This is going to, for those of you that backed the original game or have picked it up by other means, whether at a convention or whatnot, this upgrade pack is going to bring it up to 2nd edition as we are reprinting it and making sure that all the rules are explained properly, all the corrections are made in the rulebook, in the scenario book, as well as improving all of the cards that are included in the game. And this add-on pack is going to include all of the cards. You can simply just take and remove all of your cards from your current game and replace them with all of these, making sure that all of the heroes are streamlined and all of their rules and everything else are balanced and explained properly in all of these cards, including any of the other cards that are in the game. It's going to be a nice, easy swap out of all of those materials. So from there, let's go ahead and get into the rest of the video covering the hero add-ons first. From there, let's move over to the characters. The first 2 I want to look at are John and Liz. Starting with John, let's look at his strengths and weaknesses first. So starting with his strengths, he is a versatile character, so there's a lot of different ways you can use him to maximize his abilities. Secondly, he has a lot of abilities with his songs that are going to empower the party, which will allow you to use him in a number of different ways. From there, his weakness is that he is a jack of all trades, but a master of none. What does this mean? So with him having a lot of different versatility and all the different songs that he can use to augment the party, he has a lot of different ways you can use him. But unfortunately with that, that means that he's also not going to be very strong at one particular way. From there, let's move over to Liz. So with Liz, her strengths are that she is versatile with her familiar. So using a number of her abilities, she is really going to be able to maximize her familiar, which gives her a unique aspect to her way of play style. From there, she also has abilities that allow her to weaken enemies, which can be very, very useful. Finally, her weakness is that she is very squishy. She doesn't have a lot of hit points or defense, so you're going to have to protect her and keep her towards the back of the party or really support her and make sure that she is low on that initiative track. From there, let's go ahead and jump back up to John and look at his abilities on his card. So with John, he is a bard and his abilities are going to focus around support as he is going to be a support character. His starting abilities will either grant him and all heroes in his space +1 attack reroll or +1 defense reroll. Moving down to level 3, he has the Power Anthem or the Solid Crescendo. And again, with this, it is going to either augment the heroes and himself included in the same space with +1 attack or +1 defense. Moving into level 4, he has his Shield Shriek and Lullaby. With Shield Shriek, it is going to cost an action, and all close enemies to John have -1 defense until John's next turn. On the other side, with Lullaby, it's going to cost you 2 actions. With that one, you're going to check your knowledge, and if you get a 2+ result, then all enemies in a space of your choice are going to suffer sleep. And then the final lament is that all heroes in the same space gain +1 attack action, including John. And then he has his his starting weapon, which is going to be a two-handed weapon and is going to grant him a power chord. So as one action, he can roll 1 die on an enemy within clear shot. A ranged success is going to cause pushback. Moving on with Liz, she is a Ruin caster, and with hers, she is going to focus on her ability either as a spellcaster or as a familiar handler, as she is going to have a special ink blot familiar, and her abilities are going to either augment that or really focus on her spellcasting. Starting off with level 1, she has the Ink Splat, where you can destroy your familiar and knock down one enemy in the same space as that. Otherwise, she can do Well Read, which is going to give her +1 reroll on spell attacks. From there, moving into level 3, she has the Binding Ink. With this one, enemies in the same space as your familiar are at -1 defense. Or she can go with the Cartographer's Eye, and all spell attacks gain Pierce. Moving into level 4, she has the Ink Siphon. If your familiar defeats an enemy with a critical, one close hero may heal one. So that is huge. That healing is very difficult in this game. So any ability that grants healing is very powerful. Or she can do Ink Rain. For 2 actions, a spell attack does AoE damage. Could be also very nasty. And then the final action or final ability on her, level 5, is the Inkstrosity. With this one, your familiar becomes an Inkstrosity and gains +3 attack and +3 health to their stats. So Liz also starts with the Ink Blast, which is her magic or a close combat attack. And it's a spell that has gives her 3 dice, and criticals are going to cause pushback. The next character I want to look at is RAYNA the Dragoon. Starting off with her strengths, first off, she has a good amount of mobility in a number of different ways. Her starting weapon gives her an attack range of +1 to her melee attacks, and then once she gets into level 3, she has a couple of different options, whether she wants to leap, which gives her a great amount of movement, or that she can pull an enemy with her, as you're going to see a little bit later. Her other strength is that she is very good at offense or defense, depending upon which way you choose to tailor her, and can be a strong character for either option. Her weaknesses are her low HP, especially if you decide to go with her defensively. She is going to definitely need to pick up some items that are going to boost her hit points, as if she's going to be played as a tank. She doesn't have a lot to start off with. So from there, let's go ahead and jump into her abilities and see what she has. She's going to start off with her spear, and this is going to give her 4 dice, is a melee weapon, and is also going to give her +1 range on her attacks, or melee attacks, meaning that she can attack enemies up to 2 spaces away, so very, very effective. From there, her abilities, starting off with level 1, she can either choose to add +1 defensive reroll or +1 attack reroll with Well Trained. Her level 3 abilities, her first one is Leap. For 1 action, once per turn, she can jump up to 3 spaces freely, ignoring all obstacles. Or she can go with Harpoon, which is also 1 action and will pull an enemy in clear shot close to her. So it's a kind of a get over here. Then we have Dragoon's Sight. With this one, attacks gain Pierce and +1 attack reroll. Or she can go with Well Prepared, giving her +2 to her defense. Her final ability is Wyvern Strike, which is going to cost her 2 actions, but will give her +2 attack and hits all close enemies. So super powerful if you start getting surrounded by enemies. The next character I want to look at is THALIA the Toxiphile. Moving into her strengths, first off, she is Ranged Death. She has a number of abilities that are going to make her a very strong ranged support character. Her second strength is that she has many different abilities that are going to really give her a lot of damage potential, and a lot of different ways that she can reroll dice and gaining extra dice and really dishing out a lot of pain from range. On the other side, with her weakness, if she doesn't have a good ranged weapon, she is not going to be able to support the party very well. So it is going to be key to getting a good ranged weapon into her hands so that you can maximize her potential. With her, she starts with her Alchemist Bow and is going to give her 4 dice on her ranged attacks. THALIA is really good at supporting other characters with her potions and alchemy, as well as maneuvering around the battlefield. So her starting abilities at level 1, she can either choose the strong shot, which on critical attacks cause all heroes close to the target to gain +1 attack on their next attack roll, or the shielding shot, which works the same way but gives the heroes defense. In this way, she is able to really affect anywhere on the battlefield. So if heroes are way out and they're attacking enemies, if she targets them, she's going to get to bless those or buff those heroes as she goes along. Moving on to her level 3 abilities, she has Pierce Gaze, which is going to give her Pierce on all of her ranged attacks, or her Calculated Step, where she is going to be able to not have to worry about taking dodge attempts when moving. Her level 4 abilities are Quick Reload, which gives her +2 rerolls on ranged weapons, or the Toxic Skin. When close enemies wound THALIA, they also take a wound. And her final ability at level 5 is her Healing Shot. Whenever she defeats an enemy with a critical roll, one hero close to that enemy may also heal an HP per crit. So very, very powerful, especially with that level 5 ability. Moving over to Mary the GOLEMANCER, first off, let's start with her strengths. So to start with, she is a well-rounded character and can be used in a number of different ways, including being very tanky as she has a high defense, or being great at attacking as long as you get spells into her hands, as a number of her abilities are really going to take advantage of that. She's also one of the most intelligent characters in the game at a knowledge of 4 to start off with. She is definitely going to be one of those characters you want jumping into darkness spaces. Moving over to her weaknesses, if she doesn't have a good spell, a number of her abilities will not really have a good advantage to be taken. So if you're in a party that has a number of spellcasters or players that need spells, she might be one of the ones that gets left behind. Or if you don't find a good spell, she also will not really be able to use some of her abilities. With her, she is going to bring great defense and wisdom to this party. She also has some really interesting abilities. She can choose to do Magic Infusion, which all spell attacks are now going to be handled as melee instead of ranged when rolling for melee results. So she's going to use axes instead of arrows. Or she can choose to do the reflective barrier. With this one, she is going to have, on a critical defense roll, she's going to cause knockdown to one enemy per crit. Moving on to level 3, she can do Magic Surge, which is going to give her +1 attack dice with magic spells, or the Stonehide, which gives her +1 defensive dice when she makes defensive rolls. Level 4 will give her Overdrive, where she could spend 2 actions to attack, and an attack does AoE damage, or she can do Salvage and Repair, which allows her to heal 1 HP when defeating an enemy with a crit roll. And her final ability is Destruction Pulse. Once per turn, for 1 action, all enemies in clear shot take 1 wound, which wounds will bypass enemies' defense. Very powerful. The next character I want to look at is EILEEN the Assassin. Moving into her strengths, she is going to live and die by her sword. She has a number of abilities that are going to really give her a lot of ways to maximize her damage potential. She also has a couple of abilities that really give her a great amount of mobility, which will allow her to get around the battlefield quickly and be able to eliminate enemies or catch up with bosses that are going to be a little sneaky otherwise. Moving over to her weaknesses, she is all offense and no defense. She is a glass cannon, and so you have to be careful about throwing her into certain situations, as enemies can overwhelm and take her down quite quickly. She comes with her Reapers, which are going to be melee weapons that she is going to need to dual wield, and will give her 4 dice with melee attacks. Moving over to her abilities, she has 2 starting abilities she can choose from. Flight lets her move freely through water spaces, very powerful, or Counter Slash. After a successful dodge roll, she's going to deal 1 wound to any close enemy. Also, excellent choice. Moving on to level 3, she can take Cornered, which gives her +1 attack dice on enemies that have 2 or more close spaces occupied by heroes, so kind of ganging up and isolating enemies. Or she can do the Weapons Expert, which allows her, she can attack with any melee weapon in EILEEN's inventory, so she has access to all the weapons in her inventory, not just the ones in her hands. Moving on to level 4, probably some of the hardest choices you'll ever make. You have Shadow Strike, which for an action lets her teleport to and attack any enemy in clear shot, which is super powerful. Or Twist of the Blade. +2 attack to wounded enemies. So enemies that already are damaged, she gets +2 attack dice on those enemies. Finally, with level 5, she gets the Harbinger of Destruction, which gives her +2 actions, which will total up at a whopping 5 actions for EILEEN per turn. GUNNBJORN the SKALD is a polar bear with an attitude. Moving into his strengths, the first thing is that he can dish out a lot of pain and punishment. But on the other side, he also has a high HP and defense, which can also make him a very effective tank. His other strength is that he has a couple of abilities that augment and give the party additional actions, really maximizing his potential and the party's in any situation that he's in. Unfortunately, he does have a nasty weakness in that his knowledge is one of the lowest in the game, and so you do not want him jumping into darkness spaces, and any enemy that can cause curses can be the detriment of this character. With him, he is going to start off with his hammer, which is a two-handed melee weapon, which gives him 4 attack dice. His starting abilities, he gets to choose one, as usual, with Urzen's Strength. This one allows him to ready two-handed weapons in one hand, which is really powerful. Or he can take Fortitude, giving him +1 defense and 1 health. On level 3, he has either the choice of Mystic Weapon, which allows him, he can attack with melee weapons at range, basically using them such like a boomerang where he throws them out and they come back, but he'll use range results with them, really making him very versatile. Or he can do the Chant of Speed, which will grant all close heroes are going to gain +1 free move action, including GUNNBJORN. Level 4 gives him Tackle. When moving into a space, you're going to roll 1 die per enemy, and any melee successes are going to knock down those enemies. Or he can do Chant of Strength, which again is going to, all close heroes are going to gain +1 attack, including GUNNBJORN. And his final ability, the power, is Battle Shout. All heroes attacking close to GUNNBJORN gain +1 free action, including GUNNBJORN himself. BEBO the Warlock is a versatile character. Starting with her strengths, she has 2 main paths that you can take. She can be an excellent spellcaster, dishing out massive amounts of damage depending upon the spells you have equipped to her, or she can use her familiar to both debuff the enemies and buff the party, depending upon how you want to use her. Unfortunately, with her weakness, she is also a low HP character, so again, a little bit of a glass cannon. You're going to want to keep her defended and in the back of the party where enemies are not going to be able to hit her, hopefully. And she is also going to come with her familiar, which is BEBO's Haley. And she's going to start off with her Demon Tome. This is a spell and is going to give her 3 dice on ranged attacks, and on crits are going to cause confusion. Then, with her abilities, she is going to have a choice of either taking Explosive, which with crits on spell attacks are going to cause an AoE wound, or she can do Haley's Helper, which gives +1 defense to all heroes in the same space as Haley. Moving on to level 3, she has Dark Focus, which gives +1 attack on spell attacks, or Haley's Bite. She may take 1 free attack action with Haley. Moving on to level 4, we have Sharp Mana, which attacks using spells gain Pierce. Or she can do Haley's Scream. All enemies close to Haley have -1 defense. And her final ability is Mega Haley, where Haley is going to gain +3 attack and +3 HP to her stats. You won't catch Ross the King lying around. He has a couple of really powerful strengths. First off, with his defense, he can be an excellent frontline support character, and he also has a couple of abilities that give him additional actions, making him one of the characters that has the highest amount of actions in the game. Unfortunately, on the weakness side, he does have a low HP, which can make him vulnerable if you're using him as a tank or support character. With him, he is going to start with Ross's Royal Sword, which is a melee weapon and gives him 3 attack dice, and he's also going to have the King's Shield, which gives him +1 defense, bumping his defense up to 3. Then, with his abilities, he has a couple of options starting out. He has Encourage, with heroes in the same space gaining +1 defense reroll, including Ross, or he can choose to do the Sturdy Counter, with a crit D roll causing knockdown to a close enemy that is attacking him. Or he can, with level 3, he has the Royal Two-Step. He can gain 1 free attack action after a move action, Or he can do Pride, which gives him +1 defense when in a space not occupied by other heroes. Level 4 gives him Well Trained, which gives him +1 attack actions. Or the Mighty Roar, which is going to cost him 2 actions and causes an AoE pushback of 1 close space of enemies, basically shoving them all away from him 1 space. And then finally, on his level 5, he has the Ross Face, with all heroes starting close to Ross, gaining +1 free action, including Ross. So now that we've covered the heroes, let's jump into the High Tide expansion pack. So before getting into that and taking a deeper dive into each one of those pieces that are in there, I want to talk about how you incorporate it. So with this pack, as well as the core packs, each one of them is going to have their own deck of spawn cards. And depending upon how much you want the enemies to show up, you can either put the entire spawn deck of the expansion or the core sets together with any other of the spawn decks, or you can cut it in half and shuffle that in with your base deck, whichever one you've chosen. Now, the same thing is going to be true with the core games. So whether you have Call to Barnacle Bay or Lacluck's Revenge, each one of them is going to have their own separate spawn deck. And if you want to incorporate any of the enemies into either one of the games that you have, you'll simply take those spawn decks and shuffle them together. Again, if you want to have one of them show up less, simply shuffle in half of that deck with your whichever core deck you've chosen. And then with the heroes, it is simply you choose whichever heroes you want to take, whether it is ones from one of the core sets, one of the add-on ones that you've picked up, or any of the other expansion heroes that are going to be available. You'll simply just choose the heroes you want, make sure you have their starting items as well as their initiative card, and you're ready to go. So from there, let's go ahead and jump into the High Tide expansion and take a closer look at all of the different components that are included in that. Bart the Rebel is a heavy-handed character. Moving into his strengths, first off, he has a couple of abilities that provide knockdown, which is going to be very helpful for the party, especially against high defense enemies. He also is a specialized character where he is going to get bonuses against grunts potentially, or also being able to activate during the grunt activation, hopefully neutralizing some of them in the process. But that is also a double-edged sword, as it means that he's not quite as useful against other enemy types as he is with grunts. He's going to come with his own starting card of the Pincher, which is a melee weapon, and gives him 3 dice. Moving over to his card, his level 1 abilities are the Claw Smash, which on a crit attack is going to cause knockdown, or he can choose to take Tough Shell, which gives him +1 defense reroll. Moving over to level 3, he has Claw versus Claw, which gives him +2 attack against grunts, or he can go with Insider, where he can pick one enemy type and gain +2 defensive dice against them. In level 4, he can choose Pack Mentality, which gives him +1 free action during the grunt's turn, or he can do Old Habits, which gives him +2 or costs 2 actions, and he may teleport to any spawn point in the active encounter. His level 5 is Bonk. All successful hits cause knockdown. So a very interesting hero. The other character you're going to get in High Tide is Chompy the Unchained, a true bad-to-the-bone BearShark. Moving into his strengths, he is excellent at getting into the mix and dishing out a lot of pain and punishment. He has a number of abilities that will give him a lot of attack power. And the more damage he takes, the more he's going to dish out, really maximizing and throwing a ton of dice at his enemies. He also has a number of abilities that make him very effective at handling brutes. And on his weakness side, unfortunately, he is also not the sharpest shark in the shed, as he only has 1 knowledge, and so again, he is not going to be one you want jumping into darkness spaces. His starting weapon is his claws, which grant him 4 dice, and they are considered melee. Moving over to his card, he has 2 different starting abilities he can choose from. Rend, which allows him on critical attacks, he causes cleave, or he can choose to have a thick hide, which gives him +1 defense. His level 3 abilities are Territorial, which gives him +2 attacks against brutes, or +2 attack dice against brutes, and then Blood in the Water, which gives him +1 attack to wounded enemies. So this will give him an extra die against wounded enemies, or he can choose to have +2 dice against brutes. With level 4, he has Pack Mentality, which gives him a free action during the brute's turn, or he can do a bear charge, which is going to cost him 2 actions and allows him to move up to 2 spaces and roll 1 attack against all enemies in those spaces. His level 5 ability is Rage, which gives him +1 attack per wound on him. So if he takes a lot of wounds, he can really dish out a lot of pain and punishment. Moving over to the enemies, there are 2 brand new enemy types introduced in this expansion. The Boomers, which are the Bloat Rats, and the Guard, which are the Garmadillos. They will have their own enemy stat sheet, which will list levels 1, 2, and 3 as you make your way through the campaign. These enemies will become harder and harder just like the rest of them, and will have their own stats just like any other enemy. They also have brand new special abilities. With the Bloat Rats, they explode when destroyed, and when they are defeated, they are going to poison all close heroes to them. So you want to hit these guys at range, because otherwise they are going to cause all of your heroes to be poisoned if they're too close. Moving over to the Garmadillos, they are going to block clear shot, meaning that they take up an entire space and heroes cannot shoot past them. Now, enemies behind them can shoot through them and target heroes like normal. They also come with Taunt, which forces close heroes to attack them if they are able to. So they are nasty customers and real tar pits for the heroes that are going to have to deal with them. And they have a high defense at 2 and 5 health to start off with, and that just gets worse as you go up in the levels. This expansion also includes 16 spawn cards that you'll add to the spawn deck, and depending upon the difficulty level you want, you can either half the regular spawn deck and add these cards in, or if you want a little bit easier a game where they show up a little bit less, you add all of these in with a full spawn deck. Then you're also going to get 10 brand new event cards that you'll simply shuffle in with your current event cards. Well, I hope you found this video helpful in deciding which add-ons you'd like to add to your game. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please post those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them, or swing by the Kickstarter's page and drop any questions you have there as well. I'm sure the creators would love to hear from you and are more than happy to answer any questions you have. As always, if you find my videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can support channels like mine so we can continue to grow, be able to produce this content. If you want to get notified anytime I drop new videos, also give that notification bell a ring, and that'll let you know when I drop new stuff. So let me know in the comments down below if there's anything else you want to see around this. I'll also have links to my other videos, including the videos that I've covered for Wanderer, the Call to Barnacle Bay, and Lacluck's Revenge, as I have done a playthrough and an overview for that as well. And I also have a brand new video coming as well for the boss battle from the original game that was a tough fought battle with chalk. So let me know what you think of those, and until next time, I'll see you later.